Hi hobby friends. What you want, crisp, beautiful straight lines. What you get, fuzzy-edged monstrosities. Let's see how we can get those satisfying peels this week, and if you stick around, you can see it in real-world action on the sexiest aircraft 40k has to offer. I picked up this trick from the fine arts world after getting supremely frustrated with one too many splodgy masking jobs, and I haven't looked back since. It's so simple and obvious you'll kick yourself when you see the solution. So, we've masked up two bases here, both of which are primed and selected for their nibbly-knobbly texture, a texture ripe for seepage. And that is the problem we're trying to resolve. No matter how cleanly you mask, how much you press down your tape, and how smooth your surface is, chances are you'll have some little micro gaps into which the paint can wick. Let's do the what not to do version first. Tape on very seep-prone ink in the airbrush and let's just splooge that all over. Two issues here. One is flooding. If we have a big pool of wet paint, the chances of some of it leaking are orders of magnitude higher. And the other problem is we didn't use the obvious trick. So let's do that on this one. Tape down and nicely sealed this time using a little rubber tool, and then some clear coat of something. It seems acrylic canvas artists like using this stuff, matte medium, but I've tried it with varnishes too, and as you might expect, you get exactly the same benefit. This thin layer of varnish or medium pre-seals all those micro gaps for us, and because it's clear, even if it does seep through, who cares? You can't see it. It's see-through. Still good to be cautious though, so we also want to go gently with our final paint, layering up slowly and avoiding any flooding. And that's it, that's the trick. A quick layer of varnish or medium over your masked area before painting. And of course this technique is 100% compatible with regular hairbrush as well, so don't come at me in the comments about an airbrush tutorial, okay? But painted bases don't make for very eye-catching videos, and I have a beautiful unpainted Hemlock Wraithfighter that's been sitting on a shelf greyly for too long. So let's do that while we're here. And maybe there might be a couple more masking tricks in there for those of you who stick around too. Fun fact, my camera has a slow motion mode, and it's pretty easy to accidentally record in it. We don't have all day though, so let's pick up the pace here a little and get the first job after priming done, namely basing out some bone bits, first in red and then a yellow ochre tone, and lastly with some actual bone-coloured off-white. Then on to bonus masking tip numero uno. For organic shapes, use silly putty. I've also seen people use blue tack, and that works just fine, but for my money, silly putty has a slightly better consistency and just the right amount of tackiness to use for this job. It can be pushed and moulded around with your fingers and sculpting tools too, so great for laying down camo patterns on tanks or getting natural patterns on your lizards, dragons, or other monstrous minis. It's reusable too if you need it a bit. Silly putty also snaps in a fairly straight line if you pull it quickly, by the way. Fun stuff. Next up, I painted the black thing black. My favourite all-purpose covering black is still Vallejo Model Colour Black, so I have both the regular and airbrush versions. Having both versions means I can airbrush easily, but also have a colour-matched paint for fixes with the hairbrush later. Now might be a good time to mention this is a speed paint job, by the way, since I wanted to use this bad boy in an upcoming game. The whole thing took about 3 to 4 hours or so of active painting. That's somber grey from Vallejo in the airbrush there, by the way, a lovely purplish grey that's great for highlighting black. All I'm doing here is following the real-life highlight patterns I see when I hold my Mini at a given angle to my desk lamp. Simples. Here's another masking tip, gloss varnish. There's nothing more annoying than pulling up paint with your tape after some masking, and one thing you can do to help a little is give yourself a slightly less grabby surface to work on, and gloss varnish will do just that. It's not a guarantee of the perfect pull though, unfortunately. And now time to get some tape down. How about yet another masking tip? Getting perfectly parallel lines can be a bit challenging, especially on the sleek curves of some superior elven technology. But putting down a piece of tape where you want your line, then matching up either side with more tape before lifting that first bit off, that makes keeping things square a breeze. As before, we start with a layer of medium or varnish and then work up some gentle layers of red till we have a nice solid coat. And since we went to the effort of highlighting up the black, let's highlight that red too. Peel up the tape and... oh darn, there goes the black chipping away. This is the last of the masking tips. Be patient. As I said, I was speed painting this for a looming game, but really, if you're planning on doing masking work, it's always a good idea to give your pre-masking layers a good long time to dry, like 12 to 24 hours ideally. Although acrylics are very fast drying, to get a really good, solid cure, they still take a fair while, and touch dry doesn't always cut it. You can also try reducing the stickiness of your tape a bit by sticking it down on something and lifting it up a few times, but to be honest, if you have cats like me, this is a recipe for turning your tape into a furry little mess. Just some edge highlights and some fancy panel lining shenanigans you can learn about in my now fairly ancient panel lining video, and when all that and a little bit more was done, we ended up with this. Hopefully you got something out of this video, and if you did, please give it a thumbs up and comment down below to help the algorithm along in suggesting this to more mini folk. Subs are always very appreciated, and if you're feeling flush, you can buy me a coffee using the super like function too. Links to shenanigans in the description, and more videos coming soon. Cheers!